Hello everybody, this is Roll with Winter Bros, and in this video segment we're going to cover how to discuss handle some real-world data within Daz Studio with your Daz Scripting code. We're going to explain to you what identifiers are. Basically, they're the names that you're going to choose for items that you create within your code, like variables, constants, or function names. There are, however, some naming conventions that you got to stick to. Whatever identifier name you want to create has to have the alphabet small letters A to Z and capital letters A to Z. It can't consist of other characters except maybe the numbers 0 to 9 and the underscore. Another restriction is that all of your identifiers have to begin with a letter or an underscore. They can't contain any special characters or punctuation. They must be contiguous, meaning they're a solid word with no spaces, and they cannot be the same as reserved keywords in Daz Studio and some of the other names Daz Studio uses for scripting. As in most programming languages, you can have a reserved word listing. These are keywords that you cannot use in your code as you create your Daz script. It's a short list. However, you got to be aware that you also can't use the same names as some of the functions that are built into the Daz scripting. For instance, the message box function. So you couldn't use a variable or a constant named message box, or you couldn't use that name for your own functions. Real quickly, we'll touch base on constants and variables. Basically, when you create a constant or variable, you're just telling Daz Studio to make a place inside the computer's memory to store some information that you want to have access to and possibly change. Constants, of course, is CONST is how you define them, and they just basically mean no change, as in the word constant. Whereas variable with VAR is meaning it's something that changes, hence the word variable. You're going to find that there's not a real lot of difference between constants and variables within the Daz scripting environment. However, to use constant variables in Daz script, they're first going to have to be declared, which you have to give it a name. And then after you declare it, you can define it at the same time, or you can assign it a value later on, which basically means that you're going to give the identifier that you created some value, and that's going to be really important. We're going to go over to Daz Studio to show you how to use it to make some constants and variables for use in your Daz scripting. You can see here we pulled up Daz Studio 4.9, and we're going to show you how to declare a couple of quick constants and variables. We will go ahead and click in the script ID here, and we'll start with a couple of variables. In this demonstration, we're going to just make one called myScriptName, and we're going to declare it, but we're not going to assign a value to it yet because we want to demonstrate something to you. And then we'll go ahead and make one a constant, and we will make that one, we'll call that one the hours in the day. Oops, I kind of messed that up, excuse me. Okay, now we've got those two defined, declared, excuse me, not defined. The declaring means just tells Daz Studio to create a space for these things with the names, the identifiers you give them, and the types are going to be variable and constant. So really quickly, I want to show you that if we did actually execute this script really quick, you'll see that it ran at the bottom, no problem, everything went great. So you can declare variables without actually defining them. The key is, however, if once you start to use them, if you're going to call upon them anywhere in your code, then they'll have to be defined with some kind of value, whether it's a string of characters or some numeric value. But before we demonstrate that, we're going to go over something really quick called Camel Case. It's just a naming convention where that you can use a mix of small letters and capital letters, so that the capital letters bring attention to what you want, what the actual meaning of the identifier is for the variable or the constant you created. As in this example, you can see that we've capitalized the S for script and the N for name, with my being small, and you could have done with the capital M if you liked. It's all your preference. You just got to remember that Daz scripting is case sensitive, so a capital M for my will be different than a small m for my. You can also see here in the hours in the day, we use another version of Camel Case where we actually capitalize the beginning of each word so that it kind of stands out, and it's just easier to see that way. We'll just write it all in small, and you can see how if you look at the two, how hours in the day with the Camel Case looks a lot easier to recognize than the other one. You might actually think it says horse and day or something. Oh wait, and then you go back and realize, oh, it does say hours in the day. So the Camel Case just helps you to Daz Scripting don't care as long as you're consistent with where you use the variables and constants. It's just so that you can, for human readability, so when you go back to work on your code, you can remember exactly what it meant. Okay, so we will go ahead and get rid of this example we put at the end there. And another really quick thing we want to demonstrate for you, or explain, is prefixes, because in coding, in the programming world, a lot of times you can develop and use prefixes. Prefix is a letter you put at the beginning of your identifier name to kind of let you know what kind of value it contains, because when it's referred to in code, you may not know what's inside it. It may not be obvious. So you can see here like A for array, B for boolean, N for number, O for object, and S for string. Now they may not be readily apparent right now, but as you begin to code in Daz Script, they'll make more sense. And I'll show you really quick. We'll go back here to Daz Studio, and what we'll do is we'll take the one for N for number, and I'll show you exactly how it is. So let's just say we're going to make a variable, and we know it's going to be a number, so let's put a small n at the beginning, and let's just say it's going to be the number of nodes that are in the scene. Now if you don't know what a node is, that's fine, but you can see if we see this in our later on in our code, we'll know that it's a number because of the small n representing, and then of course the word that describes it, nodes. So it kind of makes sense. So you can use those prefixes for various things. You don't have to. It's just something that they do in the coding world. So we'll go ahead and delete that off. Now we had explained to you that you could declare your variables without defining them, and we're going to go ahead and show you an instance where that you would get an error if you try to use the variable before you actually give it some kind of a definition of as a number or a string. So we'll go ahead and introduce you to the print command here, which we had mentioned earlier on, and we'll just put in here, we'll just tell it to print my script name. Sorry, remember the caps is important, case sensitivity. And then we'll tell it also to print the hours in the day. There you go. And what we'll do is, let's go ahead and put our semicolons in here, which we found that maybe on earlier releases of Daz Script they were required. Not so much so now, but you can put them in there for readability if you like. It's up to you, or maybe for backward compatibility. So we're going to show you what happens if you watch this, the panel at the bottom that tells everything. Print actually, the print command will print to this panel down here. So let's go ahead and run the script. Okay, and you can see that it ran, but you see that it has here two undefined reports here, and that's because we haven't given any values to these two here. Now we could have once you declare a variable or constant, you can use it later to you'll assign values to it using the equal sign. So the hours in the day here we're going to say is equal to 24. Okay, now if we run this again, you'll see that the first one, my script name, came up here as undefined, and then of course hours in the day was the second thing we printed, shows the 24, the value that we placed in it. Now you can change the values later on, or you can actually, when you actually declare when you declare your variables and your constants, you can actually go ahead and give them a value. We can call this, what to say, Rolo Rants. And then we would call the hours. See, we can go up here, we can go ahead and put hours in the day equal to 24. And we can go ahead and get rid of that other line. And then if we run this script again, you will see, there we go. Rolo Rants was the first thing it printed for my script name up here, and then 24 for the value that was assigned to the constant hours and day. Because of the way that Daz Scripting handles variables, you can just use variables all the time without using constants. The difference is, and you can actually change the variable type later on by assigning it a new value. But the thing with the constant is, once you define it, it's got a certain segment of memory that's kind of reserved for it, and it knows how big it needs to be once you've given a definition, like our constant in the days at 24. So then it just might speed up the processing. You've got a really big coding project. So it's up to you whether you use variables or constants. Of course, variables are going to be for something that changes all the time. Like your script name could change throughout. You might have a variable that you declare as a name of user. And of course, that's going to depend on whoever, it's going to depend on whoever's using the application. You might prompt them with an input pop-up or something similar to actually get that value, because every user is going to have a different name. So we're going to wrap up our discussion here of variables and constants and how to handle data. Real quick thing is the things with the quotes up here, like roll-arounds. That'd be considered a string. A string is basically a bunch of characters and numbers that make a word or a length of words. And you notice that inside the quotes, you can actually use space characters. You can use different punctuations. You got to be careful with some of them. They make during the processing, they make different things happen. But you could put roll number 3. So you can use a lot of stuff inside the quotes, and that would be a string. And then of course numbers are just like 24 is a number. It's kind of obvious. Now if you put the number 24 inside quotes, it will actually be treated not as a number. It will be treated as the characters 2 and 4. So you got to kind of be aware of that, so that when you define your variables later on, that you don't put numbers that you want to be treated like numbers that you're going to count up and down with inside quotation marks. That concludes our module on data handling data. We hope you've enjoyed this introductory series and enjoyed this and learned something from it. Don't forget to refer to the PDF that's included with this video series. It's easier to read sometimes, and it doesn't go quite as fast. You can go at your own speed with it. Of course, you can always pause the videos. Thank you very much for watching this module, and have a great day.